I thought this weekend would never end. Oh. Yeah, I really don't need it.
I'm tired. I do whatever I want. Oh, thank you, Greg.
Yeah. Make it last. I'm privileged to be able to come in here and work with the people that I've been able to work with, because like I said before, the most important thing for me, because of my background and what I have to do, I have to be very careful about what I do and who I associate with, because all I need is one good defense attorney to get me on the stand and go, "So, Mr. Lawson, so you're a ghost hunter, is that right?" Yeah. So the people I work with, I trust highly, and I have a huge amount of respect for. Speaking of which, that's a great segue into this. David Aberle. If you've never been to a Paracon before, you need to know how unusual what you're about to hear is. It's almost unheard of to have a person of his qualifications and background to freely share his knowledge with us. That is a fact. He's endured the rigors of becoming a traditional indigenous warrior, healer, cleanser, exorcist, and certified Native American medicine man. He's also an author and content creator. Beyond that, he's the co-founder and co-lead investigator of Native American Paranormal Team, Unearthing the Supernatural. He's been featured on the TV shows Ghost Adventures and Unidentified. You can find him on his podcast, Spiritual Lessons and Tales, and his YouTube channel, Unearthing the Supernatural. Please welcome to the second annual Tombstone Wild West Paracon hero.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for joining us here at the Tombstone Paracon. This is the second year we've been here. I want to welcome you all here in the stands and welcome you all up there. You all are amazing too, the spiritual beings that are here. So, let's pop. How is your time here? This is your first time here in Tombstone? Yes.
Yes. It's been good. It's a lot cooler than I expected. I thought it was going to be hot, so I'm wearing my sweater and everything. So it was good. We got a lot of evidence last night and the night before. It was really cool seeing this place for the first time and relearning all the history.
For those of you that don't know, Best Pa is part of Unearthing the Supernatural. He has kind of been in and out of episodes depending on time availability. We all do have jobs. We all do have to work, pay the bills. Inflation's getting crazy. Yes. But Best Pa is a right-hand man. He's been helping us out. He's been here with us at Tombstone. He's usually behind the camera, but trying to get him out there a little bit more. He's one who ponders. He's one who has amazing questions, and the spirits don't want him to answer questions. So, how many of you have seen any of our episodes? Let's see, raise your hands. Okay, cool. About half of you guys. Cool. So, introduce myself. That's one language. Maybe a total of 3. Second language. Hero Best Pop, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Vespa.
And a few words, but his words are powerful. So, yes, we're from originally from northern Arizona. I'm originally from just the Jean, Black Mesa area. Grew up in Winslow, and standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. I guess we'll start off by how I got my gift and how we kind of got started into paranormal investigating. So, we take you way back when I was 13. I'm 31 right now. I'm starting to feel it. But when I was 13 years old, you can imagine a little boy just coming back from his freshman year in high school, getting off the bus in Winslow, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm walking back to the house, and still trying to figure out life. Still trying to figure out, freshman in high school. It's October. Get home. Outside my home, there's a white vehicle. Okay, some visitors coming to visit. We go inside, see my parents, grandparents are crying, and then I see these 2 stoic warriors back there. Who are these people? See my bags packed. Like, where am I going? And then my parents, they say, well, you take care of yourself, remember everything we taught you. They're crying, my mom, grandma are crying. And I'm like, what's going on? So, and they're like, go with these warriors, go with these men. Okay. I get in the car, and I remember sitting in the car, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going, maybe going on a little road trip or something like that. First thing that they say to me, reach back. Oh, this potato sack. Put it over your head, don't take it off until we tell you to. Okay, and I'm not going to say no to these huge dudes. I'm not going to say no. So, we drive for a while, and we pick up another kid, and same thing, I have him wear a potato sack. A couple more hours of driving, and they open the door for us. And they didn't say anything in the drive. They open the door for us, and I hear jet engines whirring. What's going on? So, climb some stairs, I know, and because I tripped a couple times. And I climbed some stairs, and then we're on a plane, and we're feeling taken off. We were able to take off our hoods there, and I met a couple more kids that were a part of that. Then we had to put our little potato sacks back on. We got into some vehicles, drove for a couple more hours. And I remember the first thing when we got out of the vehicles, it's cold. I'm from Arizona, as you can tell. It's a little bit warmer here, but it was cold, very cold. And took off the potato sacks. I see trees everywhere. I start seeing snow. Where am I? Come to find out, I was in Montana. So they said, all right, we gathered us up. There's a couple other vehicles that showed up. They gathered us up. They said, okay, here's your rations. And there's like a pile of food and then some materials and stuff like that. Here's your rations. You gotta be, it's about 2 weeks worth. We're gonna be here for about 7 months. This is all you get, man, going nowhere. Okay, I'm a 13-year-old kid, I don't know what we're doing. The other kids are like, none of us knew what was going on. Okay, so we get to work. And it starts with an amazing adventure. Learning how to survive off the land, learning how to interact with spiritual beings, learning the sacred language, learning about ceremony, learning not just Navajo, not just one particular tribe. Us kids were all from different tribes, but we were a part of this sacred program to teach us some old ways to fully immerse ourselves in the sacred teachings. And from then on, we just grew and graduated. I was homeschooled. And luckily, after that amount of time, they were giving us laptops. And that's when laptops was a thing to where you could do online homeschooling. So I did that. They allowed me to come back every now and then to see my couple of my friends and then to do a sport. And they allowed me to graduate my last semester at my regular high school. And then went to college for not even a semester before they called me back again. And if diti, tedons os ediniki, tedons anatos aboshishi. They say that that journey, it teaches each guardian, which is the English name for what us kids were selected to become. And Gufdonsi Ta, the Koa Sleep. So the Koa Sleep is the mountain I am tasked to guard, to take care of, and to be basically the guide for what ceremonies I'll learn. And that the Koa Sleep is the San Francisco Peaks in Flagstaff. It's our western mountain for the Navajo Nation. It's our protective mountain there. And so with that, there's a thought process of adulthood, a thought process of war. There's a philosophy that goes with that. There's teachings that go with the West, that go with that mountain. And so with learning about war, learning about that thought process, philosophies of adulthood, diplomacy, comes dealing with spirits, comes dealing with ghosts, comes dealing with evil, and the realities of that. It's okay, so I have to learn all that. So I was forced, I didn't pick, volunteer what ceremony to learn. And they said, these are the ceremonies you're going to be picking up because of your mountain, and it went straight to learning. Learning how to help those spiritual beings, learning how to interact with them. And so years and years went by of doing that, helping out people, going to all over the Turtle Islands to just help out different tribes, different spirits, rekindle those connections that have been lost, unfortunately due to colonialism and just pushing back of indigenous peoples to reservations, preventing us from interacting with those spirits. So it was our task to interact with them and reestablish that connection and make sure we do offerings and help wherever we can. And then we're like, well, they gave me a task. They said, you are to find a way, use modern technology, to blend the modern world with the ancient world. Find a way to blend that and teach the youth, get the youth inspired to go back and be like, Grandpa, I saw this guy, he's carrying around the sword, and he has a nice hat and a nice jacket on it. It looks really cool. He says a few words. I want to be like him. How can I be like him? He goes and fights ghosts and he helps spirits out. How can I be like that? Well, grandson, let's start learning some ceremonies. You have to learn the language first. So it's in hopes to rekindle that interest into learning the language, into learning the songs and ceremonies. That's what we try to do with Flash. That's cool. Also, everything we have on us is legit, real, used. If you've ever been with us on a paranormal investigation, they can be used. It's very interesting. But it's a little bit of intro to how I kind of came about learning the ceremonies and being ordained to interact with spiritual beings. And so we came here. It's the second year we've been asked to come here and interacting, learning the types of beings and spirits that are here. And Vespa came, and what did we find the first time Vespa? What did we find?
That we discovered a shadow being.
Shadow beings.
And a water being as well.
Water beings, yes.
And a little girl. Little girl.
And what did we find last night?
We found two intertwined spirits.
Interesting, right? So it's like, okay, what's here? What kind of beings are here? What kind of beings are around? And most people, how many of you think there is good and evil spirits? Cool. It's pretty good. How many people think that ghosts are the only things out there? Ghosts, elementals, you think those are the only things out there? Good. I want to see any hands. So one thing I wanted to talk about is one thing that we're going to highlight here with what we investigated here these past couple days is the fact that there is a multitude of spirits out there. There are a lot of paranormal investigations. A lot of people have the wrong idea that, oh, there's only good, there's only evil, there's only angels, there's only demons, and there's like a dichotomy. People will ask, is this spirit good? Is this spirit evil? It's a hard question to ask. Let's call. Are you good?
Yes.
Are you evil?
No.
Sure about that? Just like you and everyone here, there are things that we do that aren't so good. There are things that we do that are really good. We try to lean a certain way to live the best life that we can, some of us anyway. Then there are others who choose to lean more towards the other way, towards evil. But it's complicated. People are complicated. Just like that, spirits are very complicated. Spirits don't fall on just that dichotomy. They fall very well in between. There are some, don't get me wrong, there are some spirits that are pure good. There are some spirits that are pure devilish. Watch out for both, honestly. But there are a lot of spirits who will dabble in both worlds. They will dabble in between. And there are even some spirits that aren't even, should even be on that scale. So these spiritual beings, they maneuver around. A lot of them have been around since before people have been here. And what they like to do is really disregard people for the most part. Because we are our own creature. We are our own being that have our own thoughts, our own creations, and our own way of doing things. And they have their own way of doing things. And sometimes those worlds intersect. So the first being that we really kind of came in encounter with was a little girl at first, so that they would kick her out, right? And so it's interesting to think about, okay, there's a little girl running around. For the most part, you think children's spirits are taken care of. They're for the most part, when the child dies, they're very innocent spirits. They should have someone there to take them to the other side, to take them to the next world. And so it's very rare to find the child spirits, but they do happen. And sometimes they choose to stay around. Maybe they like an area. Maybe they like the people. Maybe they like hanging around, so they'll come back. Or maybe they're not humans at all. You never know. But then the next being we came across, what was that again? What's it called? You're still learning the spiritual language. Now, the dark being, how do we first interact with them? The shadow being, big boss. When did you first come out to us? After we Scooby-Doo, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So we went to the China Inn, and we went into one room back there, and there was this darker presence. We're like, yeah, come back here, there's a darker presence. Yeah, that's what we like to do, that's what we like to hear. Yeah, let's get the boxing gloves on, let's see what's going on out there. No, we're weird. But we go back there, like, okay, who's here? And we're like, let's see what's going on. He bailed. All right, you don't want to talk to us, fine. So, like, all right, we were there for a little while, trying some cool techniques and tried interacting with whatever else was there. Wasn't having much luck. So we're like, well, we're going to call an audible, Scooby-Doo. So we Scooby-Dooed. You see in Scooby-Doo episodes where they go from one room to another really fast. So we did that, we went from one room to another. Scooby-Doo. And we pulled out a cool device and started interacting with what I nicknamed the big boss around here, Shadow Being. Now, this shadow beings, as I was telling Best after the night, the teachings of the shadow beings is they evolve. So, all of you are shadow beings. Congratulations. All of you have a shadow, right? If you were to look down on the ground, hey, I have a shadow. You have a shadow. You have a section of you that is a shadow being. There are beings that are pure shadow that don't have our human physical form. And they have shapes and stuff. That's where you start getting into sleep paralysis things, because there are some shadow beings that will come up to you and are very jealous of your features, because they don't have features like we do. There are certain teachings that talk about how our features were made and how we came to be. And so they're jealous of that, some of them. And they'll paralyze you, and they'll come right up to your face and literally try to morph and steal your face, steal your features. So there's those shadow beings. Then there's also the shadow beings who are good, who protect you and take care of you, who are like your tail and shadow, that watch after you, make sure you're doing okay. And then there are also shadow beings who are everything in between, just like people. Very diverse, very different, and they decide to do what they want with who they are. Then you have the ones that start evolving. There's actually a whole language for these spirits. So when we were investigating, I found out we were interacting with this being, I had to change my dialect. So from normal word for shadow being, to you have to change your dialect a little bit when you're talking to these beings. And you started responding in that language. Now this shadow being, you can imagine when they evolve and they get huge and they start getting, they're really old spirits, these ones. They start kind of taking over a land, taking over an area. And they become the darkness. So he's here right now. He is these shadows. He is these darkness. Something. He's here right now. This is his territory. And he's got several spirits underneath him that he takes care of. We call him Big Boss because he's the big boss around here. But he's not the highest power around here. There are other beings that are older and more powerful than him. But he gave us some teachings. And we asked him, can you give us some teachings and ask us, or have us ask you some questions? He didn't want to. Anything beyond the spiritual world stuff he didn't want to talk about. So, I asked Vespa. Vespa, can you ask a question?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to. Hey, Vespa, can you ask me a question? No, I'm not going to.
What?
No.
What?
No.
What up?
That's how it was investigated. He would not let him talk because this man ponders and has good questions. So we eventually got him to let us speak to some of his subordinates. So we ended up talking to the water being. We ended up talking to, what was his name? Hishishin or something? Hishishin. I could be butchering it. I'm sorry if you're okay. But that one was a darker being. That one was more like evil, what you consider like evil to human moral standards. The water being, she was more the one that she said, what did she say she was? She transforms into?
A fish.
Transforms into a fish. Fish. You're in Tombstone. What? So we asked about that. Where are you from? Like, where is there really fish around here besides like lakes somewhere else? She says, you don't eat the sheep. Don't see. No, that's a little different. She's a water spirit. She talks about water language. She says, I'm under the ground. And when the water would touch me, I would feast. And there would be people down underneath that would be in my world, and I would feast on them. She's in the mines, she said. And when the mines would flood and there would be miners that would be trapped, she would be the one in charge of ferrying them to the other side or feasting on them, depending on their choice. Who else have we come across? There was one particular who was a very sad story in this one.
Yeah, the guy that didn't want to get on the horse.
The guy that didn't want to get on the horse. First words he says was, I'm hurt, I'm sad, and it's my fault. And this spirit, he told us that he refused his ride to the other side. So, real quick, let's pause right there. What happens when you die, Miss Mom? What are you going to do?
I don't know.
So, in traditional kind of lore, not just one Native American tribe, but kind of how we're taught, how we interact with these spiritual beings. When a person dies, their spirit leaves this realm, and is ready to leave this realm, and it's their time. Say you've had a sickness, or you're getting old there in age, and it's just your time. Maybe some of you have experienced elders or relatives who have passed on. Just before they pass on, they start seeing their relatives. They start seeing their ancestors. Or maybe they say, I see a horse outside. I see another animal around. They see something. And those are the ones that are going to help them go to the start of their journey. So, just use this as an example. Read it down. No. Vespa dies. Vespa dies, and on your Hey, Baseball. Time to go. Sorry you died. We're gonna go have some fun right now. So, come with me. Good, see, you listen. And so they take you to the start of your journey. So imagine the end of this blade here is the start of your journey point. Your body is left there. Your spirit goes, and you get taken to the start of your journey point. At the start of your journey point, that's when you face this whole area right here. Before you get to the top, and you end up either to the happy hunting grounds, heaven, whatever you want to call it. But this whole journey, you learn how to become a spirit. You face everything you've done in your life. You lived a good life as best you could with being a good person. That journey is going to be fairly easy to relatively compared to someone who didn't live such a good life. That will be hard. They say sometimes a spirit gets stuck on that journey. And they end up stuck in this journey realm. Another word for it is purgatory. And they're stuck. Along this journey, they learn the sacred language, the language you can hear me speak all night, the different dialects of it. They say this language is what was used when they created everything. Wood, earth, trees, fire, all the elements was spoken into life and has a spirit with that language. And then other spiritual beings have their dialects that they utilize to interact with. Some people ask, what language do you speak, Vespa?
English.
Yes.
What language do you speak, Hero?
Spirit. You can imagine the different types of people, all our backgrounds, walks of life, everywhere we come from. There are multiple hundreds, exponential amounts of spirits in the same magnitude. They're all different. They have different backgrounds. It's not just a ghost. It's not just a phantom. It's not just a demon. There are multiple levels of ghosts and spiritual beings out there. Respect that. Some of them have been here a lot longer than even humans have been here. And they're going to be here long after we're gone. There's a natural order of things. There's a natural order of interacting and respecting these beings. When we go out ghost hunting, there's offerings we always leave. We always knock when we come into a building. We always leave tobacco or some other type of offering. And we also just enjoy learning because they have so many lessons to teach us. So, with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Anyone have any questions?
I do remember you being on an episode and speaking of very tall beings, and I'm sure there are many, several varieties of, beings that would seem way grander in scale than the human size of being. Can you talk about any experience with those beings?
Yeah, so we've experienced, there's a lot of different beings. In the Navajo language, one particular being is called Yetitso, which is the big one, the giant one, giant god. And he's actually the being that kicked off our Monster Slayer twin stories. But he's not the only one. There are a lot of races of beings from multiple different tribes, monstrous giant things that was to be roaming about. And I believe from what I've read from the other sources that these giants were seen all over the world. They're written about in multiple cultural texts, multiple books, multiple religions talk about all these giants. Almost every tribe has these stories. Vulture City was one of those locations where we interacted with some of those. The story goes that these giants and other monsters, other humongous type creatures, horrendous creatures, used to be kind of taking over this world. If no one's done enough, the Navajo creation story talks about us coming from the third world. And when we came into this world, it was full of monsters. It was full of beings that would eat humans and other spirits. And so there's two young spirits that were born of changing woman. Nayan is Monster Slayer, born for one. When they were kids, there was this monster and giant that would always go to their home and be like, I smell kids. I see footprints in the dirt. Bring them out to me. I'm hungry. And changing would always hit them. And they were always scared. Eventually, time went on, they learned to hide from these monsters and these beings, and they got curious. They were like, when it would strike, they would say it would make a tree of smoke. And he would die. Okay, goodbye, we're gonna kill the next one. The village people would be dealing with this giant monster that's just there, starting to decay. Anytime anyone would go near it, they would get sick. What's going on? They would start throwing up, they would start getting boils and hives, and just sickness would start befalling them, and they started like mutating almost. And so it was brought to the spirit's attention. They're like, we gotta do something with these bodies. These people are getting sick, these people are mutating. It's weird. We gotta bury these monsters, we gotta bury this evil. So they selected certain areas all throughout Turtle Island, all throughout the world, to bury these giant monsters in their bodies and their evil. And when they buried them, they said, you're not to dig too deep. You're not to release that evil anymore. Be careful where you dig and how deep you dig. Well, Navajo Nation is one of the most largest, densely populated area of uranium mines. And that sickness does sound very familiar, right? So like when the lightning bolt struck the beings, they would talk about it made a tree and smoke and would decimate these things. Sounds a lot like something that happened overseas, right? A weapon that we now utilize and are scared of. And where did they dig a lot of the uranium out? And dig all of it up to bring forth that darkness. That was brought out. And there's other areas, like in Vulture City, where that was one of the sacred sites, that these monsters were buried. Now, where these monsters were buried, there was always warriors that were tasked to guard these areas. Well, then the settlers came in, pushed all the warriors out. Some of these tribes are now extinct, and the warriors no longer could protect those sacred sites. So now evil started to wake up in there. Hey, I'm here. Guess what? I have gold. I have silver. I have this. I have that. And entice people to dig. And when they dig, they release these evil and this monster stuff again. And now it's being used to make weapons and also nuclear power plants. And so it's all being released. So that's where training, teaching the law, the songs and ceremonies, how to interact with those different areas, that's where that comes in. But yes, there are many different planes, there are many different spirits. And as a human, I'm still learning about all those planes as well. And also, these planes have different natural laws in our world, so be very careful. Great question. Anyone else?
I love how you talk about this, and I'm sure it's a lot from what you've learned. You seem so comfortable and at ease with it. Have you just wondering if you seem like even when you were talking about the large shadow, like you seem pretty calm. Like, has there ever been something that you haven't felt calmness in your, like that has actually really terrified you?
A lot of times.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times. I'm desensitized. We're talking about that. Like, ooh, spooky. How's it going, bro? You get used to seeing Casper friendly ghosts and the creepiest things. You get used to it. You desensitize a little bit to it. But there are beings out there, and that's why I always caution people, and even Native people. We always say, don't mess around with these things. It's taboo. Like what we do, you're not going to see a lot of Native Americans out there ghost hunting because it's taboo. You're not supposed to, unless you have these markings. You learn the songs and ceremonies to interact with these beings and know how to interact. They have different manners. They don't have the same morals we do. They have certain ways that they interact with you. And if you mess that up and you don't know what you're doing, they don't hesitate to end you. They don't hesitate to be like, well, you disrespected me. And so they'll end you. Very powerful beings out there. Hence why sometimes we carry, not sometimes, we always carry around protection with us. We have different things in our sacred medicine box that we use for these particular beings. But then there are beings that are extremely powerful, so powerful that you cannot look upon them. When they come down to this realm or they manifest or you stumble upon them, it's a forceful power that forces your head down, that forces you on your knees, and you cannot get up. You cannot move no matter how strong you are. And these beings demand respect. And these beings will end you if they so. They can end you in the snap of a finger. Very dangerous, very intense. Those beings, if they have bad intention, I am very respectfully fearful of. And I'm always worried when something goes awry with that situation and we have to call them back up. We have to call for help and do certain ceremonies to help us out with those situations, and it gets intense. But for the most part, though, they're usually extremely powerful. They keep to their things, and they only come down when they need to, or interact when they need to. The rest of the time, it's usually dealing with regular beings doing their natural stuff. So, yes. Great question. How are we on time?
Yeah, you're doing good. We're sitting right at 2:45, so.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have any problem, yeah.
Go right ahead.
Can you explain a little bit about the idea of playing out whistling at night?
Ooh, yes. So, that's about your evil. Okay. All right, baseball. You're hiding in the bushes. We're in a ditch. I gotta take this. You're supposed to attack me.
I wasn't paying attention. I didn't get it.
I guess I'm safe. I'm going. No, whistling at night is like this is how you like call upon a dog. You're having someone bring attention to you. Come on over. Come on over. Fido. Like, I'm gonna call you Fido. So you whistle. You call them over. You're not supposed to whistle. You're not supposed to clap. You're not even really supposed to be around at night, according to the indigenous teachings. The night is for different types of beings. The night is mainly, you respect the night beings and what they do and what they interact with. And a lot of times darkness, a lot of times evil, we just use evil, likes to run around and misbehave at night because they can hide. A lot of the day beings, like the sun himself, is a very protective being and is a very powerful protector. So for a lot of times, there's some evils that will not be in the sunlight. They will go around at night. Some, even good beings, can't be around the sun because it's bright. Does an owl fly around during the day? If it has to. But it's bright for some spirits and they don't like to be around during the day. But whistling at night, you're whistling, clapping, yelling at night, you're calling attention to yourself. These spiritual beings that are out there, they're like, what are humans doing out here at night? What are they roaming around out here? Because historically we had fire, yeah, but we didn't have flashlights. We didn't really have a need to really be out at night for the most part. And so these spiritual beings are used to that. They're like, okay, what's a human doing in my domain? And they go check it out. They go, look, what is this thing? How dare this being go here in my domain? And calls upon all that. So that's why you're talking about Yinagoshi, skinwalkers and stuff. I can say it because I'm holding this bad boy, so wherever it is. I'm raised with the ceremonies on how to deal with that. But most people will not even say those names and those beings for fear that you're perking their ears. You're getting their attention, and you don't want attention called upon you. You don't want the enemies coming at you. Like those, they would say, watch out for the crow that flies from the north. Watch out for the coyote that crosses from the south and walking to the north. Watch for the cougar that crosses from the east. And watch for the condor that flies from the west, or the deer or elk that comes from the west. They're all teachings to keep yourself prepared for combat, prepared for spiritual beings that are on your path. Biggest thing, stay hidden. A good native always tries their best to not bring attention to themselves. I'm doing an awful job at that. Thank you, good question. Anyone else? Otherwise, me and Beth can just act a little bit more.
Just an observation, it would be fun to hear you and Amy Bruni have a talk about whistling. Because Amy Bruni talks about how, like, she's mentioned multiple times how she whistles every time she's in the dark alone. Because it makes her feel better and nothing bad can happen when you whistle.
That's very interesting. So,
it would be fun to hear that.
if you hear the different thing, to us, it's very practical. Like the teachings go, it's mainly for wartime situations, not just for spirits either. For wartime situations, when you're hunting, when you are at war, you are not to make noise. Even the children, when they're born, they're taught not to cry. Otherwise, you give away your position. And so we grew up in wartime situations where that's where it's practical, sensitive things. Just like with our teachings of you're not supposed to be around dead bodies. When someone dies, you leave the home. So like someone were to die in Hogan, you're supposed to, traditional teachings, you leave the home. You just leave, you either put the body away somewhere, or you just leave the body in there. That's the traditional teachings of the dead spirit owns that area, the spiritual teachings to it. And the practical teachings behind that is, you don't know what that person died from. They didn't have doctors back in the day to exactly say what they died from. So they pretty much isolated that area and say, well, that person died of some sort of sickness. We're going to leave that alone. And even when they would take the body away, there would only be 4 warriors that would take the body to put it away. And they would spend 4 days after they put the body away, they would not come back home. And they would sweat. They would go through sweat. They would go through all kinds of purifications to cleanse their spirits and their bodies. And also, if that person did have some sort of infectious disease, 4 days they would usually find out if they got infected as well and prevent bringing that disease back to the village or back to home. So there's spiritual and there's very practical reasons. So there's a lot to it. But yeah, it'd be a great conversation to have. But if you were around 2 days ago with our protection ceremony, you heard a whistle being blown. And so certain whistles are blown at certain times to call upon the spirit. Like we said, call upon the spirits. You don't want to call the ones that you don't want to have around you. But when you whistle and you call upon those spirits, you are asking for certain ones to come. So we'll blow with an eagle bone whistle or a bamboo whistle, and that's signaling to the spirits, hey, we're having ceremony here. We're wanting to speak and communicate with you. So sometimes in our episodes you'll see me blow that eagle bone whistle. And that's usually to call upon the warrior spirits and say, hey, we need your help. So it depends on the situation.
I remember reading about a ceremony, a fire ceremony that you did with an elder.
One of the fire ceremonies that we utilize and why fire is important. So Winishkish, we teach about him, grandfather. What's a Winishkish based on?
I don't know.
It's the fire poker.
Fire poker.
There you go. So the fire poker, that one, they say fire has its own spirit, fire has its own energy. And so in order to tame that energy and allow you to cook or to manipulate for ceremony, to get the embers out, or to make sure that it just doesn't burn like crazy, you have the sacred fire poker, and that is a very powerful medicine and very powerful tool to claim, or not claim, to kind of detain the fire from going out of control and keep it contained. And so I always carry Winishkish with me as representation for the fire. And when you're doing a ceremony with fire involved, you are, it's like you have an element of you that can blend worlds and change and shift objects. You can change water to a vapor. You can melt certain ores. You can change wood to ash and gaseous states. So fire is like a conduit to change worlds. So we utilize fire and we're making ash, sacred ash to bless our weapons, sacred ash to bless ourselves, or when we go out to do anything, ash is very important to have. And so ash, you start a fire, you pray with it, you try your best not to use any artificial things like fire or starter liquids or anything like that, because you want as much as you can to be natural. So we use a lighter if we don't have matches. So, but just don't use lighter fluid because that's just chemical. You won't get sick from that. But you pray with it. You start the fire and you say, I'm going to utilize the ashes from this fire. I'm going to utilize your teachings to protect my family, to protect myself, for whatever purpose you're going to be utilizing the ash for. Say it's for a patient, it's for a home that you're going to be blessing. So you pray with it, you talk to the fire. Usually we offer cedar cedar sprinkles to kind of bless the fire and kind of get it going. And once the fire cools down, you have the seed, the charcoal kind of cool down, then you're able to collect the ashes. And the stories behind why ashes works and is able to touch the spirit world is because the ash and the remnants of that is the fire. The fire takes the songs and ceremonies that it has and starts changing worlds. Like we talk about different dimensions, different worlds. It starts changing and morphing that. And acknowledges a whole story, acknowledges whole creation stories, whole like sacred prayers. All of that has happened within that fire. And so all those prayers are said and kind of infused into that ash of what remains and purifies that. And so now you have a pure element of what's left, that ash, and you're able to utilize that to put on your blessed weapons, put on yourself. And we even use the black ash to put on kids or ourselves when we're having nightmares. We put the ash on us, on our foreheads, the black ash, on our foreheads and hearts so that we can sleep good sometimes. We also utilize it when we go into darker areas. We bless our feet with it. If we're going to go into like a cemetery or anything. But yeah, ash is a very, very impactful. The fire has a lot of purposes with the cooking, with protections, with even getting rid of dark things. We'll use fire to get rid of haunted objects. And we also have ways of making sure we keep haunted objects if it has something that is contained that doesn't need to be getting out there. John Zaffis is a huge proponent of making sure that those things are kept in their objects. Awesome, man. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit of teachings.
Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I know this is off the topic, but are sweat lodges considered ceremonies?
Very, very so. They're very sacred ceremonies to many indigenous tribes. So the sweat lodge, they say, is you're going back into Mother Earth, and then almost like you're going back into the womb. And you're in there, and so a lot of tribes will have different numbers of stones. So they'll have like either 9 stones to represent the gestational cycle of women. They'll also have either other sacred stones like 13 very sacred 7 stones, 4 stones. Depends on the people going in. And every tribe kind of has their teachings about where the doorway faces, whether men or women can be in the sweat lodge at the same time, different songs, different prayers that are in there. But it is a very holy ceremony. And unfortunately, one of the ceremonies that has been exploited the most. I'm sure some of you have heard about the Sedona incident that happened, and it cost someone their life. And so it is a very powerful, very intense ceremony. When done right, very sacred. A lot of what we do is sacred. I think a better answer to your question is a teaching that I try to live by as best I can. Every breath you take, every thought you have, everything that comes out of your mouth, it's a prayer. It is a ceremony. We're always in ceremony. Respect your thoughts, respect what you say, respect everyone around you. Be careful where you walk, be careful what you do, and live the best life you can. And there are beings watching, there are beings rooting for you, there are beings trying to help you, just as there are beings that are out there trying to get in your way. But do your best to live a happy life, to live the best life you can. Smile, laugh. Laughter is one of the best medicines. And just be you. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you.